Okay guys, so I'm working from home and I'm gonna go ahead and mark this pattern. There's a pattern piece here. I mean, really, you could use any kind of fabric you want. You don't really have to cut out this exact shape. It's just to tell you where to sew your welt pocket. And in order to do that, we're gonna mark some drill holes here. So again, I'm working from home today, which I know a lot of you guys are, and you may not own an awl at home. An awl is a really cool tool that's super sharp and pointy at the end. And then the more you push it up, the wider it is, so it makes a nice hole. Instead, I'm using just a push pin, and I'm just kind of doing little small circles, circling about 1/4 of an inch, and just kind of hoping that I'm bending like the space in between the weave. I'm gonna do the other side. I'm gonna try that same system, marking those drill holes. Okay. And then it might be hard to see on camera, but yeah, I can see a hole here and I see a hole here. So it did work. If you have chalk at home, maybe you wanna go grab chalk and circle it. But yeah, there's my 2 drill holes that are marked. Okay, so go ahead and cut out the other 3 pattern pieces. You'll notice they all have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you'll need to remember that when we're at the sewing machine. This piece is for the actual little welt that you will see. And then these are just your pocket bags. You'll notice one is a little longer. That's because it's gonna be like on top of it for the welt. So when they're sewn together, it actually is the same length. You'll see it later, it'll make sense. But just go ahead and cut one out of each one and remember the names of what each pattern piece is, and we will be ready to begin. Okay, so your first step is to fold the welt facing in half, and we're just gonna sew it on both side seams, and then we'll flip it so that the right side is out. So again, when I sew it, I'm gonna sew it a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So get my pins in so it'll stay. Okay, I'm gonna take it to the sewing machine. Okay, my stitch length is about 2.5, 3. I would like to backstitch, trying to stay at my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Granted, there is a camera in front of my face. It's a little tricky. All right, I think I got it. And I backstitch at the end. So my home sewing machine, it's nice, my take up lever automatically always goes up, so I don't have to worry about manually pulling that up. And cut my thread. I'm gonna flip it around and go ahead and sew the other side, again at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I sewed the edges on the welt. Again, it was folded in half right sides together, and I sewed them a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Before I flip it, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and maybe trim the corners here, see if that'll give it a little sharper edge, maybe. Okay, and now I'm gonna go ahead and flip it open. And I will definitely grab my iron and give it a nice press. I think I'm gonna grab a pin and see if I can't push out my corner to be a little sharper. I'll do this side instead. Happy with that. I kind of like how one side's black, the other side's print. It's kind of fun. Okay, so that welt is prepared. On to the next step. Okay, so after sewing our welt, I'm noticing it's much bigger than what was drawn on the pattern piece. It's definitely not gonna fit in that hole. So I'm gonna just change our pattern piece to actually be 1 inch wide, because my welt is 1 1/4 inches, and I know I'm gonna use that 1/4 inch for seam allowance. So when it's finished sewing, it'll be 1 inch. So, so I just drew a line basically 1 inch taller. I'll go ahead and just outline it in a blue Sharpie. So hopefully you can see that okay. Let's take a look here. Okay. My Sharpie gets there thick. I'll just trace the bottom again too. Cool. And then kind of like a new little Y shape here. So that's my new shape. Okay, I wanted to take a minute and just look at how all these pattern pieces are gonna line up together. So we have our finished welt. It's 1.25 inches wide, where our space is 1 inch wide. So we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I would just line up the raw edges so it's 1/4 inch past the bottom of the welt. And then after that gets sewn in, when he gets flipped up, it should fit perfectly in our little 1 inch space. Okay, so he's kind of the first layer. And then on top of that, we're gonna put one of our pocket bags, which gets flipped to the inside later. But again, this has a 1/4 inch seam allowance too. So it'll go right on top and we'll sew that 1 inch, or that 1/4 inch seam allowance. This will be underneath it. Since it's so furry, I'm just gonna set it aside real quick so you can kind of see. I'm just gonna fold it under. And so once it's sewn, it'll line up to this seam. And then we have the other pocket bag, the under one. So I just placed the upper one here. And then the other one's gonna get sewn on the top and it will be like folded down. And when that happens, then the pocket bags will actually be the same length when you sew them together later. That's why one is a little bit bigger than the other, is because one gets sewn to the bottom part of the welt opening, the other one gets sewn to the top part, but then the bottoms line up. So it's kind of neat. So let's go ahead and try and do that. Before I sew it, I should line it up on my pocket. So there are my drill holes. I really want it centered with my drill holes, and I'm just gonna sew a 1/4 inch from my raw edge. Now, my drill holes, if you guys remember, are kind of low, so I can line up my raw edge right to my drill hole. But if your drill hole is a little higher, you would just place it appropriately. But yeah, it looks like it's centered. I'm gonna sew straight across. Maybe I'll actually just pin it to the fabric in that same spot that I already marked. And then I'll also put on my my pocket facing. This is the upper pocket facing. It's the smaller one. So I'm lining all of that up. And I guess the trick of this is to really just sew a 1/4 inch from the raw edge of those two. And then I really, in a perfect world, want to sew exactly this length, which seems to be 4 5/8 inch. Okay. So, so it's kind of centered, and I should probably put in some pins to help me mark it. That would be the line I want. Okay, so I'm gonna try my best to start right at my pin. I'll backstitch. I'm gonna sew straight and I'll backstitch here, and I'm sewing a 1/4 inch away from my raw edge as well. So let's see how that goes. Okay, I'm getting a little more detail oriented here because I noticed my little welt was slightly off, so I did not sew a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm taking a minute to actually measure the distance from my needle. I have my needle in the down position. I adjusted this ruler so this little tab is right at the 1/4 inch mark. I'm kind of lining up that little purple thing so it touches the needle. And yeah, I guess you can put your foot down if you want, but I'm kind of just noticing where is my exact 1/4 inch seam allowance. And it looks like there's a little line right here where it says 1/8 inch to 3/8. So 2/8 would be 1/4. So I need to be real careful about lining up my, my fabric to that line. Just kind of pay attention. So it basically goes, it's not even like I'm lining it up inside of the foot. Or actually, maybe it is. Maybe it's exactly inside my presser foot. So I'm just gonna be careful and really try to get that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I encourage you to get a ruler, measure the distance from your needles so that you know exactly where 1/4 inch is on your sewing machine as well. Okay, let's see how I did. I got it the length I wanted. Yeah, I think I did pretty good. So, okay, cool. So on to the next step. Okay, so now we want to grab the under pocket, which was slightly longer. We want to basically sew it along this line, which is 1 inch away from this pink line, but we want a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So really I'd line it up so my raw edge is a 1/4 inch, goes past it. I line up the edges of my pockets here. And if I measure the space between the two raw edge, 1/2 inch space, and then another 1/4 inch here, that should equal 1 inch. So you make sure they're actually spaced 1/2 inch apart. Yeah, my raw edges are about 1/2 inch. And then I'll sew just a 1/4 inch from that raw edge straight across. Okay, so I'm probably gonna get my pins again so I know where to start and stop. All right, and I'm ready to take it to the sewing machine. Okay, I went ahead and sewed it. As you can see, I feel like it's a little crooked. So I think in a perfect world, it would be nice if I had chalk paper and I could really just write my exact lines, but that's okay. We're just doing a notebook sample to kind of learn how to do this. And I know you guys are working from home and may not have chalk paper available. So that's okay. We are gonna go on to the next step. Okay, so now it's time to cut and we're gonna do that Y cut. So maybe we should look at our pattern again. So it's fun to bring this up. So basically we have our drill holes kind of in the middle. So you can cut straight in between the drill holes and then we want to cut like at a Y angle for the corners because we really want to keep this fabric here because it's going to flip to the other side and act as seam allowance so that we have a really nice clean left and right side. So, so again, I'm going to cut from here. Oh, sorry. Hopefully not that crooked. Here, and then I'm going to clip to the corners best as I possibly can. Okay, here I go. Where are my scissors? So I can actually see my drill holes still, luckily. Let's see if I fold this guy. I'm going to fold it just to kind of get my little chop in the middle. Chop. Okay, and I can see my drill hole. I'm not sure if you can. I'm gonna cut right to where the drill hole is, and then I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna go all the way to this corner best as I can, and then to this guy. So you can see I just cut right up to the stitching. I didn't cut past the stitching, just right up to it. I'm gonna do the same on the other side. I have to flip it because I'm right-handed. Where's that drill hole? There he is. Going right up to the drill hole. And then cutting at an angle. And at an angle there too. Okay, great. So now I'm gonna push everything to the inside of my garment. All this good stuff here. Now flip it around to the back. Okay, so my little welt pocket's gonna flip up, and then my pocket bag's going down. This pocket bag, oops, get this guy inside. Good. There we are. Get all his seam allowance and everything. I'm sure you can see that. All of that inside. Yeah, good. So I got my welt here, my seam allowance, and I'm also gonna do a really good job pressing this as well. I'm gonna wanna press that guy open, press my little triangles to the inside, and here, let's grab the iron real quick. Okay. And then bring my pocket bag down. And hopefully when you bring your pocket bag down, they now are the same length. Isn't that kind of neat? Okay. Give it all a nice press. Might as well just flip my, or trim my stitches. I don't really need those anymore. Okay. I'm gonna press the other side as well. Give it a look. Make sure that little triangle guy is folded nice and straight. I picked really soft fabric, so it's so bendy. Okay. Great. This rectangle, I can really make sure it's ironed nice and straight. I don't see any like raw edges showing. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, great. Okay, so now I'm gonna sew my pocket bags together. So I flip over this side and I'm gonna sew straight down. I'm gonna catch the triangle. It's so hard to see, I know, because it's black fabric, but I just want to sew straight down and then just sew my pocket bag. Let's see if I can. Sew across from my pocket bag down at the bottom, and then I want to sew back straight up, and again catch that little triangle that I had cut out. So I'm gonna sew straight across to kind of keep him down, but I'm not sewing this part of my fabric. I'm just sewing the triangle straight down and then, you know, back stitch. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay. Alrighty, looks like I'm not gonna hit my needle, so I'm gonna go for it. I decided to use a little bit shorter stitch and went like I'm at like a 2 right now. And then I'm gonna change it back to like a 3, just for this pocket bag part. Pivot turn. Pivot turn. danger part. So I really want to make sure I sew right next to where that pin is. Oh boy, I'm gonna slow down my speed. And take out my pin. Change my stitch length again to be a little shorter. Okay, and I'm going to back stitch. Okay, yeah, let's see how that looks. Okay, I just took it off the machine. I, of course, need to do some trimming. I just want to make sure y'all can see it. Oh, I took out my pin. Okay, that's what it looks like from the back. There's my little triangle guy he got sewn in. So did this guy on this side. It's also sewn in there. The edge of my welt, that clean. I wonder why they had us sew the edges. I feel like it could have worked if we left them raw edge. But that's just another day. There we go. Look at that. Oh, I think it turned out kind of nice. I wish it wasn't black fabric so you could see it better on camera. That turned out pretty good. I like it. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed the sample and use it maybe on your next pair of pants or jacket you're gonna make.